Good evening, everyone. Today is Tuesday, July 5th, 2011. We have a special guest in the audience from Spiritual Singers. Ms. Heslop, if you can keep it down real quick. We're going to have the national anthem sung by Jenna Williams, who's a spiritual singer. Jenna, would you come up and take the podium? She's a current student at the University of Dayton. She's a York alum of 2010. She's also with the Spiritual Singers. Jenna, if you could all please rise for the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Jenna. Great job. Spiritual Singers, you do a great job as well, too. And if we could all please still standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. And to make this meeting official, Clerk Spencer, if you could please call the roll.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Pezza.
Here.
Gutenkopf.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Polemski.
Here.
York. Absent. Hipskin.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Kennedy. Absent. Morley.
Here.
Wagner.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
12 present, 2 absent.
12 present, 2 absent. We have a quorum. And at this time, I'd ask for anybody with any written communications and or petitions from the public at this time to please rise and present those to our Clerk Spencer, who's up here to my right. Anyone with any written communications and or petitions from the public? Hearing none, I'd go on to our public forum portion of our meeting. Clerk Spencer, is there anyone signed up for public forum today?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have a few. Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
Mr. Pakash, and as usual, we have 3 minutes. We'll love to hear from you.
Good evening, all, and hope you all had a good holiday. Since the last meeting and everything else, there have been numerous articles in the paper about the city of Elmhurst and the EPA. Now, when it first originally appeared, I talked to a few of the people that are in this room, and they said, Claude, nothing to really worry about. It's minor. Well, the articles keep on appearing in local papers, and Tribune had a few articles about it, and either we have a problem or we don't, but as the articles continue, the numbers seem to get larger and larger. So we either have a problem with the EPA or we don't. Okay, I'd like to get this finalized by this august body here. Also, I've been hearing rumors that for whatever reason this council all of a sudden wants to change the elevations of structures in this town. I lived here about 40 years. I'd really like to know why all of a sudden this council would like to change elevations of structures. See, I don't want to drive downtown one day and see the Hancock going up in the middle of York and North Avenue, and somebody said, well, if you'd asked prior, we could explain it to you. Just like the garage, it could be explained to me. And this thing with the EBA, it either is a problem, it isn't a problem, but I don't want to come to a meeting and find out that all of a sudden this council has to vote a $500,000 fine in. and they don't have the money for it. And that Stoop that didn't send in the notice to the EPA, I'd like to know what he's doing nowadays. So I don't want it to cost me all the way around. So let's kind of have this transparency the mayor and the aldermen would like to have.
Thank you, Claude.
Next, we have Tim Sheehan, 246 Highview Avenue.
Good evening. I'm here tonight representing the committee responsible for bringing history to life through a vintage baseball game to be played here in Elmhurst. Through the cooperative efforts of the Elmhurst Historical Museum, the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation, and the Elmhurst Park District, Sunday, July 17th will be a day to remember as we watch America's favorite pastime as it was played in the 19th century. Beautiful Barron's Park will once again be the site for the vintage baseball game, featuring our hometown Elmhurst All-Stars playing against the Chicago Salmon. The Elmhurst team is made up of public officials and community leaders, including our mayor, Pete DiCiani, and aldermen Jim Kennedy and Kevin York. Local resident John Garcia from ABC 7 News is participating again this year. The manager is former District 205 board member Mike LaCicero. This year marks the 5th anniversary of the inaugural contest between these two teams. The first game was played as part of the Elmhurst Historical Museum's 50th anniversary celebration. The event continues today as a fun, family-friendly history lesson where the game is played by 19th century rules and etiquette. The Salmon has won each of the previous 4 meetings, and the All-Stars are working hard not to become the Washington Generals of vintage baseball. Last year, nearly 700 people took advantage of the great weather to enjoy the game, including between-inning events such as running bases, tossing the 19th century baseball, the bat race, and answering Elmhurst trivia questions. Barron's Park amenities, including the splash park, putt-putt golf, and batting cages, are a stone's throw from the field at the base of the sled hill. Food and refreshments are available at the hub. Comcast will be filming the game, and it will be aired on local access cable throughout the month of August. So take yourself and your family out to the old ball game on Sunday, July 17th at 1 p.m. at Barron's Park. For more information on the game, please go to the Historical Museum website, www.elmhursthistory.org. For more information on Barron's Park, please go to the Park District website, www.epd.org. Thank you.
Great job, guys. I see you got some props there, too. We got some old bats and our uniforms and that unique ball that
We'll pass one.
absolutely, bring it on up. Often evades many of the finest ball players here in Elmhurst. So I've been stretching out the hamstrings, guys, so hopefully I don't pull one.
Sounds like you need a win.
Great.
Okay. Okay. Next we have Todd Benson, 391 River Glen.
Always glad to follow comedy from Ms. Spencer. Mr. Mayor, good evening to all the fine aldermen, all the public servants we have here in Elmhurst. Good evening, and also thank you all for the yeoman's work, yeoman's work that has been done in the last couple of weeks to clean up from the storms and the natural disasters that befell us here in Elmhurst. A couple of quick items here. First, I'd like to, as representing the Growy Woods, first invite you all to our annual block party, which is held the Saturday before Labor Day. Our 2 fine aldermen, Alderman Dunn and Alderman Leader, will be there, we hope, and we'll have a meeting of our neighborhood association, the oldest block association in the state of Illinois, at 6 p.m. Also, the members of the community, again, will ask that we suggest to the city that they keep on their schedule of the summer of 2012, where we're slated to have our streets ground and chip and filled. We can find some helpful vendors who want to come in and do that. That's a project that Mr. Hughes is aware of, and we're told we're definitely slated for next year. We need it bad, especially on Shady, if not Ferndale, if not River Glen. Also, Spring Road, if you guys get a chance, third Thursday of the month of July, we'll have music at the gazebo, thanks in part to the city, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Spring Road Business Association. And I'm really here tonight for one more thing on Spring Road. September 11th, thank you to Alderman Healy for helping out. It's Elmhurst Remembers 10 years after. It'll be Sunday afternoon, the 11th of September at 1 p.m., a citywide celebration under the auspices of the Park District and the city, as well as the Spring Road Business Association. We're having a rededication of the 9/11 monument built with local monies, donated funds, and please come out for that. The reason I'm here tonight is to thank you and welcome you all to the Elmhurst Farmers Market. We've done some local promotions. Problem is, we're doing too good a job down there. The mayor came down last Wednesday. We had a grand reopening of the event. We're passing out cards. We're putting up posters. What this has meant is that we actually this year reconfigured the farmers market to use more of the parking lot, get more community members to be able to enjoy it. And Adam, who runs Southtown Hot Dogs, has done a whale of a job in getting all the farmers to be there. Problem is, we don't have enough parking. My time is short, but I'm here tonight to request that you guys take a look at opening up Villette on the south side of Villette, east of Division, for parking from 6 a.m. until 2 p.m., Wednesdays only, one side of the street. At the request of the City of Elmhurst Police Department, who visited us last Thursday, requesting that we have signs ready. We are ready to support the fine folks at PNC who have given us some extra parking, and the fine folks at U.S. Bank who have also given us extra parking. But what we need is possibly to ask, and we'll also make sure the vendors aren't in the parking lot themselves. My time is up. If you could help us with extra parking, I know you have to do a survey, and thanks for paving Villette.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Benson.
Last, we have Darlene Heslop, 200 North Michigan Avenue, number 227.
On the agenda tonight, there's a referral to the Zoning and Planning Commission, which actually started out a couple weeks ago with a proposed change to our current zoning code. And this change would allow for, within the downtown area, for a maximum building height of 6 stories instead of the current 4, and for a minimum setback to be at the sidewalk. And the argument given by Mr. Warner concerning the notification was that it was the city that had filed for the change, and so therefore was responsible for all the postage and the notification, rather than a private party, as would have been the case in a request for a variance, which to me was a little weak, but that's my opinion. But what I would request is I'd like Mr. Warner or whoever would be responsible for doing this to please put together a brief PowerPoint presentation to the entire City Council and the citizens of this community to explain exactly why increasing the maximum allowable building height by 20 feet or close to 50% is in the best interest of the City of Elmhurst, its residents, and its downtown businesses. I request that you include sightlines and any shadow studies and any renderings of any potential buildings. The residents and the council need to be informed as to exactly how a 6-story building will affect the 1- and 2-story buildings that surround it, including not the ones just next to it, but the ones behind it. So not only if you're standing on, like, say, Addison and looking at the building from Addison, but if you're standing on York Street and you're looking at the back end of it from York Street, towering over and casting shadows on things such as the plaza there over by City Center, things like that, see what the shadows would be like at various points of the day. Is this really something that we want to change? Do we want to make it so that we have this sort of height automatically? You don't have to come to City Council, you don't have to come to zoning and planning and say, this is what I want to build and this is what it's going to look like. So I'm requesting that perhaps this would be something that would be good for the whole entire community to see. I'm not against growth and development. As a matter of fact, I can't wait for you to finally do something about Han Street, the right development. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see growth and development down in Addison and downtown and everything like that. But I think we have to be careful with what we do and how it looks, because we want our downtown to look appealing. We want it to look good. We don't want it to look like this hodgepodge of buildings.
Ms. Sesloff, if you can wrap it up, we're almost we're at just about your 3 minutes.
We don't want it to look like a hodgepodge of buildings. We want it to look nice, and I ask you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public forum. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Clerk Spencer. I will officially close the public forum of the meeting. We appreciate everybody's input. I will move on to our consent agenda. At this time, if there's anyone that has a question or may want to vote no on an item on the consent agenda, please indicate that now. Alderman Healy.
Letter I, please.
Letter I. Alrighty. Anybody else? Okay. Hearing none. I'd ask for a motion and a second to approve the contents of the consent agenda, less item I in its entirety. At this time, I'd ask for a motion and a second. Alderman Wagner with a motion, second by Alderman Dunn. Clerk Spencer, if you can please call the roll.
Wagner.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot Dunn. Little improper procedure there. Could I back up and do it the right way?
Sure you can.
I apologize. Dunn.
Give you dispensation.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Polumsky. Aye. York. Absent. Hipskin.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy. Absent. Morley.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Pezza. Aye. Gutenkopf. Aye. Leader.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. The consent agenda passes. Less item I. At this time, I'd like Clerk Spencer, if you'll please read the report for item I, and then I'll ask for a motion in a second to put that on the floor, please.
Okay. It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Affairs and Safety Committee that the position of the museum coordinator be filled by a qualified applicant. Respectfully submitted, Public Affairs and Safety Committee, signed by Patrick Wagner, Chairman, Paula Pezza, Vice Chairman, Michael Bram.
Very good. At this time, I ask for a motion in a second and put this on the floor, please. Alderman Wagner with a motion, Alderman Healy with a second. Discussion? Alderman Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll defer to Alderman Healy just for the moment. Okay. Thank you, Chairman and Mr. Mayor. I pulled this item because I did have some questions and concerns. Did have a brief discussion with Chairman Wagner last week about it. My concerns are not about the position per se. I read the report. I understand that this is a non-IMRF position. There are no benefits. It's pretty much a straight hourly position. Reading the report, it doesn't sound like there's a question that the position is needed to run the museum. My concerns are a little bit bigger than that, going to the hiring freeze that this council imposed a couple months ago, and whether we want to be bringing even a part-time position, hiring a person, bringing that person on at this point, knowing that our new city manager starts next week, and we don't know if once City Manager Grabowski takes the helm of the staff, whether he's going to want some time to review staffing, if he's going to want some time to potentially make changes, and if that is the case, do we want to be hiring a person literally a week before he starts? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I know that the intention of our hiring freeze was to make sure that when we were adding positions in the interim, that they were absolutely necessary, that we as a council felt they were absolutely necessary, and so that we gave City Manager Grabowski time to review how we were doing things and how we were staffing various areas. So with that in mind, I don't look at this position as something that is absolutely necessary to the staffing of the city. The person resigned. The museum staff has been covering that position somehow since that point. I think asking them to wait a couple more months wouldn't hurt. And I would just ask us all to consider that if when the time comes, there are staffing changes, whether it's within the museum department itself, whether it's in some other department, if people are going to be reassigned, positions eliminated, do we really want to be hiring a person now knowing that there might be changes down the road that this position could potentially go to? Because I don't know that, and because I want the new city manager to get his hands dirty before we start bringing on people that are non-corn critical, and by that I would mean public safety, and clearly this is not a public safety position. I'm going to ask that I'm going to move that we table this until a time certain to give City Manager Grabowski time to come in and do what we're hoping that he does.
Okay. Mr. Chairman Wagan?
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Point of order?
Point of order. There was a motion.
Yeah, he needs a second.
Right.
I think we have a second right here.
We have a second?
There was a second.
Alderman Mulliner with a second. Discussion? Chairman Wagan, would you like to?
Yeah, please, excuse me, sorry about that earlier. Couple points that when it was brought to the committee, I'd like to make sure that it was known. The new city manager was in that committee meeting and did participate in the proceedings and was comfortable with the decision from the committee at the time. At the moment, the position is vacant, and I think the museum is affected by that vacancy. So I fully supported the job itself, understanding the Morley Amendment clearly and its effect. I felt that because this wasn't an IMRF position, the city was only obligated for almost a volunteerism type of wage at this point, and it's 8 hours a weekend on Saturday and Sunday to maintain that the museum stays open and operating as it would. So I felt that it was important to do that for the museum and make sure that it's open for the city of Elmhurst and for the residents. And I supported it wholly, and I hope others do as well.
Alderman Pezza?
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to ask City Manager Kopp if, in fact, I know during that discussion, I believe Mr. Bergager stated that he already had someone in mind. I just want to be sure that that person wasn't already contacted or hired or anything is done with that.
No, at this point, we're just in the phone interview portion.
Pardon?
We're at the phone interview portion of the hiring process.
Okay.
No one's been offered a job or anything at this
Okay.
point.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Chairman Wagner?
Just to clarify,
Sure.
City Manager, I thought it was my understanding that there was candidates.
There are.
There are candidates, but there's
The
nobody been offered a
application,
position.
correct. The application was due the Friday before the meeting, and we're in the process right now. The phone interview process would be the next step in the process. I believe they're in that process now.
Very good.
Just to follow up then, while I did sign the report, and I do think it would be nice to have someone there on weekends because it's a big time for the museum, I also don't believe it would be that big of a deal, since no one has been contacted, to possibly hold off for a few weeks and review this and just be sure we've got everything the way we'd like it to be. So I'd be okay with that.
Alderman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I definitely share the concerns of Alderman Healy on this position, albeit part-time, albeit no benefits to the position. It is a line item already in our 2011-12 budget, As we've stated in the past many times, that doesn't mean we need to approve any position or any type of item that's already in our budget, but we have allocated funds for it. I think from our discussions last week, it was approximately up to, I want to say 15,000 or something along those lines for the year for this position. With that said, since I do share your concerns, I am more than willing to table this for the next 2 weeks.
Okay. Alderman Gutenkopf, you had a hand up as well?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I have some half-formed thoughts, so that's why my hand was only halfway up. I'm a little concerned that even with our hiring freeze, the position was advertised before this came out of committee. And I assume the committee dealt with this in your discussion, although I admit I didn't see that reflected in the minutes. I don't remember that being reflected in the minutes of the committee meeting. So it makes me a little uncomfortable that we went ahead with contacting candidates before the city council has approved lifting the hiring freeze for this position. And so with that, I do think even though our new city manager was in the committee meeting, I don't think that means he's really had a time to assess everything that he would want to think about in terms of lifting the freeze for a particular position. So while I do recognize how the museum could benefit from this position, I agree. I think tabling this so that we can get a better handle on it is probably not a bad idea.
Real quick before I go on, would a double motion to table, that's an automatic, right? Is there a vote on that, City?
Yes, you're going to have to vote on
Okay, just want to double check and clarify.
first.
Yeah, just to clarify, there's a actually, if we're going to table something, it's not debatable, we're supposed to vote immediately. That's why I want a clarification on the motion. Is it a motion to table, motion to postpone to date certain?
It was to a date certain.
I
don't know that the date certain was actually said, but it was to a date certain, which means that you can have a discussion.
I think we could, if it's going to be to date certain, then the actual part that's only debatable is why we're delaying it, not necessarily the merits of the issue itself. The other option that the council has, that we've done in the past, is just to refer it back to committee and allow the committee chair to bring it back to us when he feels it's right. Seeing this type of opposition, I think that might make sense. Our code allows for 2 aldermen to send it back to committee, and it can sit there until the chairman of that committee wants to bring it back.
Very good.
May I say something?
Clerk Spencer, sure.
I recorded what I heard Alderman Healy say in his motion, and I put, move to table to a time certain until City Manager Grabowski comes on full time. So I guess that's 2 weeks. And
Point of order. I don't believe you can make it has to be a date certain. You can't. Or a table. Well, if you're, we have to know what the motion is before we continue the debate here.
Right. Would you like to withdraw the motion and go back to committee? Would that be easiest, Alderman Healy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I definitely want a date certain, but I intentionally did not include a date in the motion. I'd rather, I wanted to listen for the comments to see if there was personally, I think it's 2 months. Personally, I'd like to see it be September 1st. I think it's unreasonable to have City Manager Grabowski come in next Monday and a week or 2 after that say yep or no. I'd like to see a little more comprehensive thinking going on. So I intended to amend the motion once I had a better feel for what the council was thinking. If I'm being asked to amend the motion, I would amend the motion to a time certain, no sooner than September 1st. City Attorney Strino, if I need to be more specific than that, I would say time certain to the first council meeting in September.
Okay. Alderman Leader?
It's a second.
Point of order.
Is that a second? Are you going to second or are you discussing?
I have the second.
Real quick, I'll get a second from Alderman Mulliner.
Yeah,
on the amendment.
I concur with the.
Okay. And then Alderman Leader, we'll continue with discussion. Go ahead.
Well, actually, I'm kind of conflicted on this, and I'll explain why. My wife is a member of the foundation, and by the same token, I certainly understand exactly what Alderman Healy is saying and why. And his point is well taken. Because my wife is on the foundation, there's no conflict because it's obviously an unpaid situation over there. But I did ask her about this, and she's told me that what's happening at the museum is that there is, or could be, a safety issue on the weekends. This woman who resigned was there for a couple of years, and the idea is to have at least 2 people there. And so they had this part-time employee who's now resigned, and so the second person there would be a volunteer. And incidentally, almost every week it's my wife who's the volunteer, so I don't see her sometimes on Saturday or Sunday. So her point was that it's not a good idea to have one woman alone there, whether it's a volunteer or this part-time employee who's no longer there. And that was the reasoning why they wanted to replace the part-time employee now, because they perceived it as a safety issue. And though they're able to get one volunteer, sometimes it's very difficult to get 2 volunteers. So I just wanted to give you that background.
It's good discussion, Alderman. We get a sense of what's happening. Alderman Levin?
Well, I don't have any problem with hiring this individual now for a couple of reasons. One is I don't think I voted in favor of the Morley amendment, and the reason is that the city is an ongoing business or ongoing entity, and the business doesn't have to stop because the new city manager is coming on board. If we were hiring a police chief or a fire chief, a department head or assistant, but this is about as low of a position as you can go. It's an hourly, 4 hours on Saturday, 4 hour on Sunday position. We have an acting city manager who oversaw this. I think you give too much credit to someone who comes in new to an organization that his first priority is going to be to sit down and figure out if we need 8 hours of a part-time employee at the Historical Museum. We put it in the budget. We've set the priorities. We said that this is a position that's supposed to be there, and the city manager will carry out the directives that we set, and we set them for whomever was going to be the city manager. So to spend all this time talking about tabling it till September 1st, this is a very minor position, and I think in addition to the reasons that Alderman Leader set forth, let's get on with the business of the city. And I'm surprised to hear that 2 of the people that signed the report are kind of backtracking like there's something wrong with hiring someone. I don't have any problem with it. It's a very minor expenditure, and it's something that's in the budget. So I will be voting against it.
Thank you, Alderman Levin. Alderman Healy. I'll go back to Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple points, and I just in response to some of the arguments that I've heard, I don't feel it's my position to tell the museum how to do its business, but I draw from my own experience running various operations that you're running shorthand almost all the time, and when you're running shorthanded, you make adjustments. I know we have 3 full-timers and at least 1, possibly 2 other part-timers that if schedules were adjusted could easily staff those days and times. Are they desirable days and times to be working? No, not if you're used to Monday through Friday, but you make do. But I certainly appreciate the issue being addressed. I mean, I'm a little concerned that we have a single employee in that building, male or female, at various points in the weekend. I'm a little concerned about that. But in regards to Alderman Levin's comments, I guess I look at it and say, is there a slippery slope there? Is something too small? Is something too big? We voted for the amendment, or the hiring freeze for a reason. We didn't put parameters around it, and I don't discount City Manager Grabowski coming in here within a couple of weeks and deciding that changes need to be made in certain departments. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. That is, again, I understand government's not business, but in the business world, it's very common when a new person takes over that changes are made fairly quickly once they come in and see what they have. All I'm saying is I don't think we need to be hiring people that if the potential exists that we may be moving people around or maybe who knows. That to me was the intent of the hiring freeze. I think what I'm trying to do is adhere to the intent of that and let the new city manager come in and I understand he sat through the meeting and on its surface he may have been in agreement, but I also don't know that he was able to dig as deep as he wanted to or needed to. Maybe City Manager Grabowski comes in on June 12th and tells me, Healy, sit down on this one, it's good, and when I hear that from him, I'm in.
Very good. Alderman Brown, Alderman Pezza.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few comments, and some of them are in regards to some of the statements that have been made. My understanding in regards to if there are candidates for this position or not, that those candidates only are there due to the fact that they knew about or know about the resignation of the employee, not because that the city went out looking for a person to fill this position. That is what I took away from the conversation last week. In regards to the hiring freeze vote, the reason why that amendment, from my understanding, is in place is for this full city council to evaluate any possible hiring of any type of employee as it comes across. So we can, if you would, micromanage what funds are being spent on any type of staff position. And I'll curtail that into wavering on, the signature that I put on this report or not. When there's a concern by any alderman on the city council, I am more than willing to entertain that concern. And I was proposing personally to potentially take this back to committee and discuss it further for a time certain of 2 weeks. And no, that is not a motion. Upon, the agreeing support of my fellow committee members. That is why I made the statement. If we move forward with this current motion of September 1st, I will stand by my signature of supporting this report as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Pezza.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I think this is a perfect example of why it is important to have this discussion and debate here on the dais, because I did sign the report. I am a very big supporter of the museum. That being said, one thing I would never do is retort by saying, oh, how dare anyone bring this up this evening? You should have come to me ahead of time and talked to me privately and personally, and we could have discussed this. I appreciate this discussion here, and now that I'm hearing the discussion, I think I have changed my mind, and I'd like to revisit it. So I don't think there's anything wrong with the discussion or the question or the potential, whether we do the hiring in a few weeks or not. I'm just ready and able and willing to bring it back, look at it closer. If something, even if we consider it a small amount of money, takes this much debate, obviously we need to take a second look at it. So I don't see anything wrong with that.
Alderman Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Also, being in the business world, you can always find a reason to spend money, I've noticed. But more often than not, you can also find a way to get by if you need to. And quite frankly, although I appreciate the use of the Morley Amendment, it's a hiring freeze that was put in place by the will of the council. So I just want to remind folks of that. But what I will say is, in my opinion, I shouldn't say in my opinion, if it's the Morley Amendment, the reason why I threw it out there was I wanted to control spending during the transition. And my litmus test for this was what I considered crucial or critical, is really my internal thought of what I was going to apply if and when anybody came back. And we've seen that already, actually. They came back for 1 or 2 police officers, and we debated it, and it came in. But if I apply that litmus test of crucial or critical to this position, it doesn't pass that standard. To me, it's not about $8,000 or $1 million plus $8,000. It's about spending the money I would support this amendment simply based on the fact that I believe our organization is flexible enough to handle a hiring freeze for 2 months. While it might not be a lot of money, I go back to what I said when we discussed the hiring freeze a couple of months ago, is that this new guy is going to come in and have a bunch of different ideas of what he wants to do. And I think the comment was made, he might want to shift things here or there, and that's exactly what I anticipate he might do. And I don't want to put ourselves in a position to have hired someone and have to shift that person or change something 2 weeks from now. The guy comes in next week. I would support tabling to date certain because, in my opinion, this position itself, I think, is something that can be covered and doesn't really pass the litmus test of a crucial or critical position. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Chairman Wagner?
Yeah, I'll just pull it back to the committee. I can do that.
Well, we have to vote on this.
Is there a motion out there?
Motion and a second,
Don,
so.
do we have to vote on that if I pull it back?
Well, we have to deal with these, motions, but I will remind the council that any 2 aldermen can take an item back. The concurrence of any 2 aldermen can pull a report back under Chapter 2. But we have motions before. I think you have to dispose of the motions first, and then if 2 aldermen wish to, if it's not already back in the committee or tabled, then if 2 aldermen want to do that, you can do that.
I'll withdraw my second if it's pulled back to committee.
Very good. Alderman Healy?
I'll withdraw.
Okay, thank you.
Fine.
Chairman Wagner, pull it back.
Aye.
Very good. Second by Alderman Mulliner.
There should be
No.
2 of the
It
committee.
needs to, just needs 2 aldermen to.
Alderman?
No, we just vote on it.
You don't even have to
Don't
vote.
even need
No,
to
we
vote.
pulled it off the consent agenda, so,
It's going back to committee, no need to
oh,
vote.
it's going back to, okay.
Okay, very good. All right, so that'll go back to committee for further review. Thank you for discussion on both sides of the issue. Get that resolved here shortly. Onward to item number 6, reports and recommendations of appointed elected officials. First up, being myself, 2 items in particular. The committee, or actually the report for the Western Access is going to the governor's desk. That report was put together and approved last week by all the mayors along the Western Access corridor, and in conjunction with Chairman Cronin from the county and all the folks that are on that council that was appointed by the governor. So that is on its way to the governor's office. Speaking of the governor, tomorrow at 10 a.m., Governor Quinn will be here in Elmhurst in front of City Hall signing House Bill 1610. House Bill 1610 was a bill that kind of originated here in Elmhurst out of a situation where we had a young boy who was lost for several hours. Boy was a child affected with autism. He was 7 at the time. James O'Brien is his name, and I believe the bill will be signed into law, actually naming James as law. So that's tomorrow here at City Hall. All are welcome to attend. Our former police chief, now Senator John Milner, was the chief co-sponsor of that particular piece of legislation in the Senate, and House Representative Karen May was the chief sponsor in the House. So unfortunately, Senator Milner will be out of town at a seminar that he's currently on, but he wishes us all the best and would love to be here. But all of our local legislators will be in attendance for the governor, and all the aldermen and city council members are welcome to be here for that particular occasion, which I think shows that we, local government is here to solve problems. This boy was missing for hours, and we had literally every policeman, firefighter, and I even understand, because this actually happened under a previous mayor's watch, that we had public works people looking for this kid. They found him at Jewel. He was nonverbal, only knew sign language, and actually one of his teachers actually spotted him at Jewel and grabbed him. Mother brought the idea to myself. I brought the problem to Chief Neubauer, who researched, did a great job in researching some options for us, and the best option, which was the most cost-effective as well, and the most, I think the most proven, unfortunately, was illegal in Illinois. So we had the draft legislation to make it legal. We got every single agency on board with this, from DUCOM, which is our 911 provider, which represents, I believe, 28 communities. We got DuPage Mayors and Managers, West Central Municipal Conference, literally the Fraternal Order of Police, chiefs from Cook and DuPage County to all rally behind us in a bipartisan effort to get this done. So that will take place tomorrow, 10 o'clock. I encourage everyone to be there if at all possible. So it's a good day in Elmhurst tomorrow and every day. So that's it from me, Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and it's good to hear about that bill being signed into law. The one thing I wanted to follow up was your report on the Western Access going to the governor, and that's also a good news story. I was hoping to have any information available in regards to the changes since we signed a resolution, what seemed to be years ago, which is probably not that literally the years ago, but any details on what Western Access will look like be forwarded on to the full City Council for our informational purposes so we could communicate that to our constituents.
Very good. Well, as I mentioned earlier, this is a work in progress. It is kind of a pipe dream right now. Hopefully this pipe dream will be a reality. But that $3.6 billion pipe dream, which had ramps at Grand and, Grand and 294 and many nice amenities to it, is down to $2.2 billion. Will require a lot of lobbying on behalf of the mayors and the communities involved. A lot of the mayors have already hired professionals to go to Washington and to deal with these issues. It's a big deal. It's going to take some time to get done, and it's going to take some political will from the federal level all the way down to the local level. So it will be an ongoing process. All of this information is public. We will get it posted on our website. I believe Aaron has been doing that, but we will make sure that that's all on there. But really, until we get funding, all bets are kind of, as far as what we're going to get, what we're not going to get. And that's why it's so important. I talk about how important it is that we have professionals in place to bring home the money. It's very key that we surround ourselves with talent at this time especially. So we've got other issues like stormwater, which all is going to be interwoven with this as well too, because this corridor is going to affect a lot of different things. So it could solve a lot of problems and create a lot of jobs. Roughly 2,000 jobs are figuring for Elmhurst will be created out of this. So and virtually every community on the corridor would see a huge benefit. So we'll keep you posted, and again, we're doing whatever we can to make it happen and look at every finance angle, especially ones that aren't going to necessarily tax the businesses along the corridor so much where we lose our competitiveness. And that's why, again, the need for federal dollars to help this project along is going to be huge. And really the need for Chicago to help up and step up a little bit. We're going to put a lot of pressure on the city. A lot of the infrastructure is right away, and Chicago owns a lot of that, up to, when I say a lot, about $500 million. So we're hoping Chicago will be a working partner. All the suburban communities are looking to donate their right-of-ways to make this happen. We're hoping Chicago will do the same thing. So. Alderman Muller.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Alderman Bram said. I'd like to make sure that we get copies of what's going to the governor's office, just so that we kind of get a chance to review it. I think it's important for us as a council to see what's going on, because it's going to have a huge impact on Elmhurst.
Absolutely. We'll make sure that takes place. Anybody else reports? Hearing none, go on to other business. Any other business to discuss at this time?
Don't we have a report for storm cleanup?
I apologize. I skipped right over something here. An ordinance, number 7. Stop. I'm going too fast. I don't have my specs. On to item B, June 2011, stormwater cleanup. City Manager Kopp, can you give us an update as to where we're at? I know we had an expenditure that we had to sign off on. Update on that, please.
Just a quick update on where we are with the cleanup. As you're all aware, Elmhurst got hit pretty hard. In fact, I think we're told we're hit hardest in northern Illinois. As to show the extent of the damage, it hit all 4 corners in the center of Elmhurst. There's approximately 18,323 ComEd residents in Elmhurst, and at one time I tallied up 17,151 of them were out of power. So literally the whole town was hit. And the cleanup's been a heroic effort by our public works to stay on top of it. The first few days after the event, it was mostly safety work, getting the streets cleared, getting the trees off of cars, houses, and the real unsafe hangers that were still in the tree. After that, we partnered with Allied Waste to help us remove what's out there. But just a heads up on people, how we're doing it. We have different crews out there. We have a High Ranger crew, a chipper crew, and then the Allied Waste crew, and they all basically do different things. The High Ranger crew's out there cutting hanging limbs that are still out there. Can be a public safety issue. They'll do chipping, but they don't have the ability to take the large logs, where the chipper crew will take the brush, and then there'll be a grappler crew out there too that'll take the larger logs. So we've literally hit every street in Elmhurst at least one time. The other issue is we ask residents if there is stuff in their backyards to get out there as soon as possible, because we've gone through areas, and we go back in those areas now, there's more brush in there from residents bringing the brush out to their front. So we've basically accessed every area, assessed every area, and we sent what we thought would be most effective for those areas into those areas to get the cleanup done as soon as possible. Well, Public Works crews are on 12 on, 12 off right now to keep the cleanup going, and we're hoping within the next week to have pretty much everything done, but probably the week after that, there'll still be cleanup to be done out there.
Very good. Thank you, City Manager Kopp. Alderman Morley.
A question for City Manager Kopp. Is there because I too have noticed the same thing on a couple of streets where they were clear, and then after a weekend, they're full of brush again. When is the city going to stop picking up? Do we have a deadline? Have we set a deadline yet?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions, discussion? Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with Alderman Morley's concern over setting a deadline. I think it's crucial to make sure that we don't, over the upcoming month, that we continue to see brush at the curbside. So I would like to see maybe for the city to consider that. The only other question that I have in regards to this is I'm aware that we hired or partnered up with Allied Waste, and their primary job, because of their infrastructure limitations, is more for the smaller limbs or smaller brush in general. And I also am aware of us leasing or renting out some additional equipment so our Public Works staff could also handle more of the cleanup. Have we considered hiring any other tree cutting firms? So some of the big stuff that's out there, it's not really the concern of the little stuff. I think for most of the residents, over this past week, I've received a handful of calls over this. It's the big stuff that Allied Waste cannot handle, and it seems like is taking a little bit of time for us to clear it throughout the neighborhood. So do we have a position, or was that considered, and why didn't we move along those lines? Also giving business to possibly an Elmhurst business or two.
We've been out there, we rented one of those grapples. We've been trying to get another one. That's the device that you'll see with the big claws on it. They'll pick the logs up and puts them in the truck. We've been unable to obtain another one. They're just not out there right now because a lot of municipalities are looking for that device. Our Public Works, we looked at it, we thought we could handle it well and try to keep costs down. We're being as effective as we can with what we have. If we get one of those grapples, we try even today to try to get one to pick up the big logs. We think that's something we need more help on.
But nothing in regards to pursuing a business, not renting from a business, but actually having a business come in and contracting with them compared to Allied Waste? No.
I mean, Allied Waste they're good up to the 4-inch. They won't take anything larger than 4-inch. They're removing everything smaller than 4-inch. And our city crews have been working on the stuff that's larger than that.
So city deems it not necessary?
We have not gone out looking for other contractors, no.
Thank you.
Alderman Dunn.
I know the strategy is to pull the branches and pull them back into a repository area. We're using Emerson School, and I think Bryan also. Emerson is getting fairly loaded with shrubbery. It's in the 2nd Ward, and I'm wondering, do we have an idea of when that will be cleaned up? I'm a little concerned as to the possibility of that to ignite.
We've actually have been removing that as we go along. That pile's not as big as it would be if there wasn't.
Okay.
We have a trucking firm that's been trucking it. We looked at a big tub grinder or trucking it, and it seemed more cost effective to truck it. So that's what we're doing right now, both locations.
Alderman Plumsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is it possible for residents to be informed of when their street may be hit next, or what the plan is? I've gotten some calls too about when will they come to my street, and I understand the strategy is for one group of crews to start up north, the other one south, and pick up different types of debris. But I was wondering if it's possible to put on the website or just let people know when their street may be visited next.
We could probably do some general areas, but the issue becomes sometimes one house takes 45 minutes or an hour to clear, the next house may take 5 minutes, and it's to say that we'll be in a certain location at a certain time it's pretty difficult to do. But as we target areas, we can say that there's going to be a high ranger and a chipper in northeast Elmhurst tomorrow. We do know, we could say we're doing that. You know, we can quadrant off the city in different areas and post that. I think we could do that.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Gutenkauf?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's probably also important to let residents know that just because you've seen a truck on your street doesn't mean that it's the truck that's going to pick up the debris in front of your house, because we have different crews doing different tasks. So the crews that are picking up the large debris are not also picking up the smaller debris that's being left for either Allied or the chipper crews to come through. So please be patient. If a truck comes down your street and it takes some of it but not all of it, that's probably the reason why.
Very good. Correct. Anyone else? Very good. And just so you know, City Hall authorized the quickest cleanup as possible with overtime. As City Manager Kapp mentioned, we're putting 12-hour shifts in, working with private contractors. A lot of these other private contractors that are out there, like the Dawsons and these other, you know, there's so much private property trees that we're down too, that these services are quite busy handling the private property issues as well too. So, looking for rentals, looking to try to outsource, you're somewhat limited when Downers Grove, Mount Prospect, Park Ridge, all these other towns had massive tree loss as well too. But we're doing the best we can. We appreciate the patience of the constituents, and we'll get through this and try to get this town cleaned up as quickly as possible. So, any other questions or discussion? Go on to the ordinance, item number 7. Clerk Spencer, if you could please read the ordinance.
An ordinance approving and authorizing the execution of a non-exclusive license agreement by and between L's Hobby Shop, Inc. and the City of Elmhurst, DuPage, and Cook Counties, Illinois.
And at this time, I ask for a motion and a second to put this ordinance on the floor, please.
Need to waive the rules. You need to waive our own rules with respect to this, I think, because
approving the report and the ordinance on the same night.
We have the.
It's in the report.
The report.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The report.
I apologize.
The waiving of the rules is in the report.
Okay, very good. So no need to waive rules. That was already in the report. Appreciate the clarification. Need a motion and a second to put this on the floor, please. Alderman Healy with a motion, second by Alderman Wagner. Discussion? Hearing none. Clerk Spencer, if you could please call the roll.
Healy.
Aye.
Wagner.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Gutenkauf.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
York. Absent. Hipskin.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy. Absent. Morley.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. The ordinance passes. And to item 8, other business. Any other business at this time? Alderman Peasant.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick but an extra large thank you to city staff. The sidewalk that was never there but is as of today was finally poured on Elm Park. There used to be just a grassy area where the sidewalk ended on Alma Street at Elm Park, which would force students and children and people on bikes off the sidewalk onto the street. So if they were heading up Elm Park going west and a car was turning off West Avenue heading east, you would turn the corner and almost immediately drive into a group of children or whoever. So thank you so much to Chief Kopp and especially Kim McGrew and Mike Hughes. We have worked for, I know, since the day I was elected. That was one of my campaign promises, was to get that sidewalk in and the residents could not be happier. It was a huge safety concern. The CN worked hard. It was a team effort. So thank you to everyone for getting that done, and it was very exciting to see that there. Thank you, Mayor, for allowing us to push this through. And it's a nice, safe way for students to finally have some place to walk instead of in the middle of the street. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Pezza. My pleasure. That's what we try to do. Anybody else for other business? Okay. And to announcements. Any announcements? Anybody? I'll give a plug to the ECAF golf outing, which is August 1st. It's coming up here. It's at Riverside Country Club, and Chairman Crum is in charge of that, along with Mr. Diamond. I believe that is, no, they didn't do it in Forest Riverside. Good question. And bear with me, just double check to see if there's anything else on our list of good deeds that are always going on in this town here. I believe the Y is having their golf outing as well, too. It's coming up July 16th at Maple Meadows. It's a stone open, and that's for the YMCA. Please look at the Y site. We'll be able to make reservations, et cetera. So, and also for the Stormwater Committee, July 18th, we have that special meeting for Stormwater, especially for that committee. All right. It's all from me for announcements. Anybody else? Anybody? Okay. Hearing none, ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman Gutenkopf, Alderman Morley with a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.